JLR Investigates. Investigative reporter JLR, come on in, come on in. Secret Service Chief Kimberly Cheatle is in the hot seat, and book it, folks, because tomorrow morning, Monday morning, she is going to testify in front of the House Oversight Committee. They're going to grill her, folks. We're talking about a potential 6 to 8 hour hearing. That's what's being reported. And we're talking about her right here, the 27th director of the Secret Service, appointed in 2022 by President Joe Biden. She was sworn in September of 2022. She hasn't been on the helm more than 2 years. And members of Congress plan to grill her. Let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on. It's all about that terrible shooting that happened last Saturday, Butler, Pennsylvania, the handling of this case. And she is definitely in the hot seat. I would not want to be in her shoes right now. I could only imagine what she is thinking. Some people said in the chat that she could be getting coached right now. Other people are saying in the chat that she could take the fifth and not speak, or not speak at all, and actually possibly be held in contempt of court for not speaking. Or will she speak? Does she feel like she did nothing wrong? Remember, folks, she said the buck stops with her. So this is interesting. And another question is, why right now, this day, 8 days after this tragedy happened, why isn't she resigned? Why hasn't she resigned? Or why hasn't she been fired? She seems like she's, digging her heels in the ground here, and she's not going anywhere. That's what it seems like at this time. But people are speculating within the next few hours she's going to resign, or resign effective Monday morning before she testifies, or possibly resign after she testifies. So this is going to be some wild stuff. We are going to watch it in real time on JLR Investigates. So you want to make sure you sub to the channel on this, because we have eyes on this situation. We want to know what she said. United States Senator from Florida, Rick Scott, put out a letter demanding just racks of questions. I think there was a total of 18 questions directed to her and her handling of Secret Service abilities, the staffing and everything to deal with the former President Donald Trump. I found this picture, folks, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the House Oversight Committee, but I saw this and I was like, whoa, you know who that is. You know who that's her, Kimberly Cheatle, and you know who she's shaking hands with right there. He might possibly be on the hot seat too. He hasn't been subpoenaed yet, but there is rumors and talk and speculation that Mayorkas, director of the Homeland Security, Secretary Homeland Security, could be subpoenaed in front of one of these House committees very, very soon to answer to what he knows. Because I don't think this is going away, folks, because there is, particularly on the Republican side of things, right? These Republicans are absolutely furious. They want answers. They want accountability. They want transparency. And they feel that Cheatle is not speaking, hasn't really said anything of anything. The only really thing she said was a complete debacle in my mind when she used the excuse of not having Secret Service agents on the roof. She used the excuse that the roof was sloped and it wasn't safe for, the Secret Service agents. And a lot of people are making memes and laughing out of that, saying that's not an excuse. It's a ridiculous excuse. Why wasn't Secret Service agents over there at the building? I'm going to get Magnolia in because I just want to, first I want to give you a clip right here of Mike Johnson, and he speaks. And this is the Speaker of the House on the Republican side. The Republicans are outraged about this. Not really a people on the Democrat side about anyone calling her out. There was a congressional member from Pennsylvania, Brendan Boyle, I believe, a Democrat from suburban Pennsylvania, suburban Philadelphia, has actually spoke out a little bit about this. But this is...
Speaker, I want to turn your attention to what's going on at the Secret Service. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle is now complying with the House Oversight Committee subpoena for her to appear for a hearing and testimony on the attempted assassination of former President Trump. The hearing is set for Monday of next week. Oversight subpoena states the Secret Service was initially open to working with the committee and having Cheatle testify, but we're told that the Department of Homeland Security officials intervened. They were trying to stop it. What can you tell us?
We're hearing that. We've got to get down to the bottom of it. authorized a call yesterday for all House members, Republican and Democrats. We had most of them on the call. We had the FBI Director Christopher Wray, and we had Director Cheatle, Secret Service. They did not give us satisfactory answers to some very important questions, and some of it needs to be in a classified setting, I suppose. But I'm prepared this morning to call on President Biden to fire to Director Cheatle. Yesterday I said that she should resign. It's clear that she has no intention to do so. But the oversight here, the mistakes, the ineptitude, whatever it is, was inexcusable. We almost lost the life of a former president, and I think there has to be accountability, and it begins at the top. This is ridiculous.
Okay. Very interesting what he said, that she was originally going to comply, but the Department of Homeland Security kind of got and kind of stopped her for a minute, kind of intervened here. And we're talking about the head here, Mayorkas, the one that was appointed by Biden right after he was president-elect. And what's going on here? So she did get a subpoena. She did get a subpoena, and Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, is calling on her resignation. Now, also, she's possible, folks, in the future, but there's no date set. There's numerous investigations that are out there in reference to this. One, a White House independent investigation. I don't know how valid that would be. I feel like I really, honestly, let's be real, I think any investigation is kind of partisan. Whoever's running the investigations, we'll be honest here. So, House Oversight Committee, House, it's majority Republicans on there, so they could be partisan on there, right, with their grilling of questions. Biden in the White House independent investigation, kind of biased right there. Homeland Security Inspector General investigation, I think, would be a little bit biased. And then the Senate Judiciary Committee is supposed to be investigating this matter too. But we haven't seen a time or date on the Judiciary Committee of when she'll be brought in. So let's get Magnolia on, because she has she can explain a little bit about the House Oversight Committee and its functioning, and who's the members on the House Oversight Committee. These are the individuals that you'll see tomorrow, and you'll see a lot of them grandstanding and doing their own theatrics, right, when they're grilling her, because it's going to be back and forth. And we'll see if Cheatle gets defiant. We'll see if Cheatle, fires back and says, I didn't do anything wrong. Magnolia investigates.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on, Magnolia.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. So talk to us a little bit about the House Oversight Committee. What's its functions? What does it do? And who are the members?
Well, they're supposed to basically be the watchdogs for the government, for the federal government and all the agencies. So they kind of serve as the checks and balances with regard to power in Washington. So they've done investigations like Benghazi in the past. What else have they investigated that we've seen?
I mean, there's just been so many investigations on anything. They've been bringing people in whenever any and all scandals. I mean, there's just so many I can't think of offhand, but scandals.
Yeah.
There are always people being brought in. They're sitting in the middle of the table and they're facing like a chair of committee people, and they have to answer under oath. If they don't, they could be held in contempt of court or contempt of Congress. The referral over to prosecution by the DOJ. Would that happen to her? I don't know.
Not likely. I wouldn't think so. So tomorrow, the chairman of the House Committee is named James Comer. Now, I don't really know much about him, but he was the ranking member from June 2020 to 2022, and now he's the chairman of the committee. Other people, let's see, who else are on the committee? I know Jim Jordan, Jamie Raskin is the ranking member, so he's a Democrat from Maryland. Mm-hmm. And then, Jim Jordan, Paul Gosar. A lot of these people I've never heard of, but
Gosar's from Alabama. Raskin is from Maryland, I believe, right? Maryland?
Yeah,
Jim
Jamie
Jordan,
Raskin
Ohio. Comer is from Kentucky, I believe.
Comer is Kentucky, yeah, and then Paul Gosar is
Arizona.
Arizona. I mean, there's a lot of members. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a member.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
Lauren Boebert,
Oh.
Anna Paulina Luna,
Whoa.
Mike Waltz. And by the way, I'm reading all the Republicans right now. Eric Burleson, Lisa McLean. Did I say Byron Donalds, Andy Biggs, Pete Sessions? So those are some names people probably are. Oh, and Nancy Mace from South Carolina.
Yikes.
So people probably know who they are. On the Democrat side, you have
Thank you,
AOC.
Newface. I'm sorry?
You have, on the Democrat side, you have AOC,
Ooh.
Ro Khanna,
Ooh.
Corey Bush.
Ooh.
Let's see who else.
Wow.
Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib.
Whoa.
So you have the whole quote unquote squad in there.
Whoa. And then also you got the real MAGA extremist on the right, and you got the squad on the left.
Yeah.
Whoa, this is gonna be.
So that'll be fiery. But just what I think will happen tomorrow, what I expect, just based on history, is she'll go in there, she'll read an opening statement. They'll start asking her questions. Now, when it gets to difficult questions or specific questions about facts and figures, I expect her to say something along the lines of, I would refer you to the Department of Homeland Security's office for that information. She'll refer them to different people. She'll say, I don't have those figures in front of me, but I can get those for you. Or I would refer you to this other agency for that information. And so she'll try to kind of pass the buck a little bit among different agencies. And some things she will testify to. So she'll probably testify to the general timeline, where they are in the investigation so far, and anything else, she will say she can't speak to that because it's under investigation, or she'll refer it out to another agency, like I said.
Well,
that's probably how it'll go.
Speaking of buck, I mean, she said on the record the buck stops with her. But it'd be interesting to see if she passes the buck on to others tomorrow.
Well, if I was her, I would. If I was her, I would try to somehow shift this to Mayorkas in some kind of way. Like, he's the one that she answers to ultimately.
Yeah.
So, I think that she'll probably try to do that. She'll probably try to say that, oh, well, you'd have to ask Secretary Mayorkas, or you'll have to ask so-and-so.
But you know what I find interesting, though, is the people on the House Oversight Committee that will be grilling and questioning her tomorrow, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Mike Waltz was the Green Beret, the only Green Beret in Congress, right? He's been very critical and speaking a lot on the media outlets about this, about this tragedy and about the shooting. I mean, those three there attend Trump rallies quite often. And not only do they attend, but they speak a lot on the platform at prior Trump rallies. So I'm sure those three are going to take it very, very personal when they go at, questioning, because it could have been them or anyone that was on the, speaking at a rally. So I think they are going to be very, very adamant here, and it will be very, very interesting.
Yeah. So Mike Waltz in particular, I think, will have a lot to say, because he's actually the one who, about a week ago, he had come out saying that they had denied some requests for additional security by the Trump team. He came out and was saying that on different news shows, and that is what prompted the question to be posed to Mayorkas and his team last Sunday, and they flat out denied it. So they called it, what did they call it? A baseless false assertion or something like that. So they basically called him a liar and denied everything he said, only for us to now find out that he was right. So he'll probably have a little bit of anger on that to talk about. But yeah, I would expect people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, especially, she's kind of a firebrand. I would expect her to go pretty hard, and also Jim Jordan.
Yeah, Jim Jordan too. And then on the other side there, Corey Bush. You said Corey Bush is on the committee. She's Congresswoman outside St. Louis, right? Represents Missouri in that district there. She's very fiery against Donald Trump and has said a lot of things about him online. And I'm just wondering how she will do the questioning on Cheatle in reference to this.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Corey Bush does in particular, because I've heard recently that she is actually losing her race right now.
Thank you, New Face. I just want to say thank you, New Face, for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think Corey Bush is facing a challenge for her seat right now. So it'll be interesting to see what she does. Who else? Let's see. AOC. Yeah.
You said Tlaib. You said Presley. You said Presley. Tlaib's on there.
Yeah, and Ro Khanna, which Ro Khanna, he's typically pretty. He's a pretty pragmatic guy, I would say, overall. So I would expect some good questions from him too.
Yeah. So this House Oversight Committee is the main investigative committee of the United States House of Representatives. The legislative authority make it one of the most influential and powerful panels in the House. Oh, she's on the hot seat. She's on the hot seat. She is on the hot seat, like I said. Yeah, this will be interesting to see what happens. So we'll be watching it, correct, on JLR Investigates?
Yeah. So the thing about the committee, though, that we touched on this the other day, this committee, now this is an investigation. There are subpoenas involved, and there are people coming to testify under oath, all those things. But they're not able to charge or convict anybody of anything. So at the most, at the end of this investigation, they can make criminal referrals to the DOJ. Mm-hmm. And then it would be up to the DOJ at that point to decide if they want to pursue some type of criminal investigation. So they will actually go through the evidence and interview people, do these testimonies under oath, questioning, and they'll come up with a report at the end their recommendations. And
you really think that Merrick Garland, appointed by Biden, will bring criminal charges against Cheatle? No.
Well, I don't know what the criminal charges would look like if she could be found criminally at fault. I don't know what those charges would be.
Or what about if they take a while and to determine whether criminal charges should be filed, refer it over to criminal charges, and just say the elections pass in 2024 and November, and House, Senate, or presidency flips in a certain direction, leaning one way, and just say hypothetically, if it was all House or all Republicans, House, Senate, and President, it gets referred over. Do you think a DOJ headed by the next president, if Trump is president, that he points his person, would bring criminal charges against her? Trump's not happy with her, by the way. I mean, Trump has spoke out last night about him not. Now, we've already discussed the level of the Secret Service guys around Trump, and then the higher levels, and I don't think he's happy with the higher levels right now. He's not defending them.
He's not. He's very unhappy with a lot of things right now. But yeah, I think one thing to understand for people is that this investigation will probably take a long time, and it will probably extend into the next administration. So I wouldn't expect anything to come out of this right away, unless they somehow investigate everything and come up with a report in the next 3 months, which I just see just seems very unlikely to me. So I think a lot of this work will be done, and then we have elections in November. So a lot of these members of this committee will change based on whether they stay in office or whether they're, whoever's up for re-election. Some of these people may not be re-elected, so they'll change for that reason. Also, once a new administration comes in, the people appointed to this committee could change. So just because, I'll just name somebody, just because AOC is on the committee right now doesn't mean that in the next administration she'll also be on the committee. So this committee will change over time. It'll look different than it does now. It looks the way it looks now, and over the next several months it'll evolve as we reach elections and we kind of see where we're going as a country. But I don't expect it to be resolved quickly by any means. Trump was saying today that it sounds like he wants to sue the Democrat Party for fraud.
Well, I don't know if he has a case on that. I mean, can you sue a whole party for fraud?
He said he wants a refund. He wants a refund for running against Joe Biden, and they committed fraud. So that just kind of gives me a little insight into his thinking. And, it just seems like if he's reelected, that he may be inclined to push these investigations a lot harder and make sure things get done. Because, a lot of times in history, we've seen these investigations take years. Like Benghazi took several years. And at the end of the day, they did make their referrals to the DOJ, but nothing ever came of it. It was just like that was that, and everybody just moved on.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Years down the line, people's minds just move on from things, and this could be really in the back burner, almost forgotten at that point, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. There's a lot of outrage right now. There is. You see it online. You can see it all over the place. I mean, it's one of the, everyone's talking about this, but how, things kind of calm over time and other things take place. We could have a nuclear attack or something crazy going on and something else that overtakes this whole conversation.
Yeah, author asked if we think Cheatle will resign. So, yeah, the reports have been flying around all weekend that she's expected to resign by tomorrow. So we think that could happen possibly in the morning. It's hard to say exactly when that'll come, but the reports have been flying around everywhere. I just haven't seen it confirmed yet. But I can't imagine that she'll stay.
No, she's done. She's a lame duck. She's gone. Literally, she's gone within days. I can't see her withstanding this. There's going to be huge pressure. There's a lot of pressure. There's a growing consensus on the right to remove her. I haven't seen anyone publicly defending her on both Democrat and Republican side. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't seen anybody defend her. Have you?
No, I've seen the exact opposite. Like we talked about yesterday, you have publications like the Washington Post and the New York Times that are absolutely blasting them. Like Washington Post really just blew up their spot last night with the report that they were lying about denying the request from the campaign. So, that was a pretty big blow. And I think it was right after that we started hearing the rumors that she's planning to resign by Monday. But I don't know how that'll all line up with the subpoena, because she's under subpoena to testify. So she has to be there.
Let me ask you something about your resignation and whatnot. So if she's compelled to come in here, does she has the right to counsel, correct? You would think.
Oh, yeah.
But as her being a government employee, does the counsel have to be provided by the government, where she doesn't have to pay? If she resigns, would she be on the hook for her own legal expenses?
Yeah, you're asking me something I have no idea. I can guess that the DOJ would be her attorneys within the DOJ.
Even after she resigned, if she was brought in to testify in legal matters regarding the handling of this Trump rally.
Yeah, if she were to resign or be fired, I don't know that she would get the same legal counsel, but the DHS most certainly would have their attorneys, I would think.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be fascinating. We are going to watch it tomorrow, and we're going to see what's up and see if we can our goal is to find out the truth, right? We want to get the whole truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth. We still don't know the truth. And I think one of the problems that everyone has is the lack of transparency and the lack of openness and the lack of, information that has been put out there. There's been zero. None. Like, we don't even know. Now, there also, you gotta say there could be a fine line here, because law enforcement, are they supposed to reveal their tactics and how they operate, or how their methods and everything like that, and in a tactical sense, investigated sense. I mean, a lot of that, when it comes to FOIA requests or public records requests, are exempt. So I don't know if all that stuff would be able to be out in the open to, them have to explain, how they position their agents and where they position their agents. I mean, because if that information gets out there, a terrorist or a bad actor could use that in their advantage in the future.
Yeah, a lot of that information they'll be able to not speak on. Just, they'll say, we can't speak to our sources and methods or something along those lines. But yeah, it's going to be, I don't expect that we'll hear any. I'm sure that we'll get some information out of this tomorrow, but I don't really think I expect anything like earth shattering to come out of it, because I just think that she will say, I can't answer that due to the ongoing investigation, or I would refer you to XYZ, something like that. So then I guess they'll have to bring in Mayorkas, right?
We'll see. I think he'll eventually be on the hot seat on something. I mean, he's already having his other issues, with the border stuff, and he was on the verge of being impeached, right? They were trying to impeach him. He's already has a lot of issues to deal with when it comes to the border, the handling of the border. So this would just be something more on his plate that he has to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your insight, Magnolia. You always provide me more insight and knowledge that I'm not aware of, so I appreciate it. Everyone appreciates you.
All right. All right.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
All right, yeah, so that was Magnolia Investigates. She, we are trying to get an understanding of all of this. We're trying to get an understanding. Remember this. Cheatle said this. Cheatle said this right here.
Who is most responsible for this happening?
What I would say is that the Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again.
The President and Homeland Security Secretary said today they had 100% confidence in you, but there are some members of Congress calling on you to resign.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on? Absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
Oh, she plans to stay on. She's not going anywhere. What do you think? She's not going anywhere. Here's Mike Johnson again speaking to Jake Tapper on the State of the Union.
A number of members of the Republican conference have been attacking the Secret Service on gender reasons, blaming the, quote, woke DEI policies for the hiring not just of a female director, but of female Secret Service agents. The Secret Service has called these attacks disparaging and disgusting, saying, quote, it's an insult to the women of our agency to imply that they are unqualified based on gender. I should note some of the loudest defenders of the female Secret Service agents are the members of the Trump family and even the Trump campaign. Not defending Cheatle, but defending the women Secret Service agents. What do you make of your Republican members attacking the Secret Service this way?
I think the response that you've seen was to a video that has been circulated and widely circulated on the internet and elsewhere, where Director Cheatle said her top priority would be to diversify the workforce in Secret Service. No, ma'am, that is not your top priority. We want the most capable officers, regardless of gender. Their job is protection, not diversity. And I think that was such a frustrating thing for people to see, especially in light of the lapses that took place apparently last weekend. So that's the backlash. There's a lot of frustration. And Jake, it's not just Republicans. It's people across the board who just don't understand why these basic tasks could not be taken. Remember, Director Cheatle also said the reason no one was on that roof that day was because of the slant of the roof, and she was worried about the health and safety of her agents. I mean, that makes no sense to us whatsoever. I've got my own security detail through the Capitol Police. Those guys would go on a roof that was a 90-degree angle. You know, I don't understand what her responses are initially. They don't make sense to people, and she has a lot to answer for.
Now, that was the Speaker of the House, and Jake Tapper, asked him a question about her philosophy of DEI hires, having more women on the force, and I do think this is going to be brought up. I don't really think it's necessarily relevant in a sense. Some people might. I want to just know about the handling of the Trump rally and the handling of just how this is security. But I think she's going to basically get grilled tomorrow about, well, you don't have enough qualified people, and you prefer to have a workforce of so many women, and you follow what I mean? So expect to see a little bit of that tomorrow too. That's why it's being thrown out there. That's why I shared that with you. Here's another report. This is about a 9-minute clip, but these are the Republicans, and these are the ones that are going to, that are beating the drum right now, saying we're getting her in, get her in, and also calling on her resignation. Kimberly Cheatle.
Former President Trump saying for the first time exclusively to Jesse Watters Primetime that no one warned him not to take the stage, even though they knew there was a threat. And it was this guy almost an hour beforehand. The Secret Service under mounting pressure following the assassination attempt of former President Trump on Saturday. 1 week later, we still have very few answers about the shooter, the motive, and the stunning security lapses. Something we have learned, 20-year-old Thomas Crooks likely flew a drone over the fairgrounds in Butler, Pennsylvania, just hours before Trump took the stage in front of tens of thousands of people. Officials say the predetermined path suggests Crooks flew the drone more than once to scope out the event site. At least 4 congressional committees are planning to probe the security failures that allowed him to gain access to the nearby rooftop that he fired from. Republican Senator Josh Hawley says he's heard from multiple whistleblowers.
The idea that you can have all of this time elapse and nobody notices, no law enforcement notices he's on the roof. Whistleblowers tell me that law enforcement were actually on different channels, different radio communication channels. There were multiple different channels and they weren't coordinated.
We need answers. The director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle, expected to face tough questions when she testifies before the House Oversight Committee on Monday. Joining us now, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, and he's on the House Oversight Committee, and Iraq War veteran Congressman Corey Mills. Welcome, guys. Appreciate you being on. Congressman Mills, I got to think about you with your war background. You know this guy's suspicious. You keep him under surveillance for an hour, and then without a ladder, just getting on the air conditioner, he hit a gun earlier, it seems. He gets on top of the roof and starts firing as soon as he gets discovered and hits Trump in the ear, kills and wounds 2 others. From what you know a week later, what have you concluded?
Well, look, Brian, the bottom line is that we need to do a full J13 commission where we investigate not only to pull the advance plan and where they set the perimeter lines, but what was the security plan? Why wasn't there a central emergency communications channel for every single one of the law enforcement officers there, from local to coordinated agencies and the Secret Service themselves? Why didn't we have someone pre-stationed on that roof knowing that it's 160 yards completely adjacent to the stage with a clear line of sight? This is a sniper's paradise. This is something that we never would have allowed to have gone within our perimeters. And I've done so many of these advances and so many of these different counter sniper operations where I've set up and I do a range fan as well as for a sniper sketch in my data log book that will tell you exactly where I would be focused and where I would look at. Right. I want to request that log book. I want to request the counter snipers team's perimeter layouts, their range fans. And I think that while Biden can't tell the difference between Cheetle and Cheetos, she needs to come on, she needs to resign, but we need a full investigation to determine whether or not this was negligence, dereliction of duty, or if there was intent. We can't pull anything off the table at this time.
Congressman, Congressman Jim Jordan, what is happening on Monday? What is going to be your first question, your game plan?
Well, I think there are two big areas. There's before. Why was President Trump denied additional security that he requested? Even the Washington Post is now reporting that.
This is new.
Did in fact,
by the way, we should say that's
resources
new.
He did. That's new. Yeah, Carol Lending, I think, is reporting that just as of an hour ago, that he was repeated requests for additional help and he was denied that. We've also had whistleblowers tell our committee that there were resources diverted to NATO and to Dr. Jill Biden, the First Lady, because she was also in the Pittsburgh area. Did that really happen? And then, of course, what Corey was talking about and you were talking about, there's a finite number of buildings that needed to be secured, that where you had line of sight to the president. Why wasn't that done? So there's the before stuff,
right,
and then there's the critical during. This shooter is identified at 6:09. 6:10, the counter snipers are noticed about the shooter, and 6:11, President Trump is shot. That critical 2 minutes, what all happened? And this idea that there wasn't a seamless communication system, did that have something to do with the 2 minutes between the time he was notified and when the shot was taken at the president and the president was hit? So I think those the before, a lot of questions about that, but also some critical questions during those critical 2 minutes when it all went down.
I just don't understand why the Secret Service can get away with not briefing America, let alone you guys, on a regular basis. It should have been every single day. This is what we've learned. Instead, conspiracy theories take root.
Yeah.
I just want you guys to look at this together. I don't know if you have a monitor there. This is the timeline. 5:10, Crooks first identified as a person of interest. 5:30, Crooks spotted with a rangefinder, usually used for golf. 5:52, Crooks spotted on roof by Secret Service. 6:02, Trump takes the stage. 6:11, officers confront the gunman, and then he quickly gets out of the way. Crooks fires the first shots. Corey, this could have been so much worse. It turns out he had three other magazines with him, and he had a remote to detonate explosives possibly in his car. Your thoughts?
Well, look, I think that Jim's right. One of the things, if we go back to the beginning, is that what 20-year-old has no social media presence? What about these 3 encrypted accounts that he has overseas? What is the motive and who is driving him? We know the Secret Service and others have said that the Iranians had a plot against the president, which we knew about. We know that there's others who are trying to assassinate the president in an increased threat platform. This should not have been about resources. This should have been about proper planning and guaranteeing the safety of our president. And so I think that there's so much stop, not only the conspiracy theory of this, but we found that in the Republican Party, a conspiracy and a fact takes about 6 weeks in the difference. But we need to get to the bottom of how this didn't come together in a more seamless manner to keep the nomination. Look, they have tried to go ahead and silence and suppress the president. They have tried to indict and imprison the president. Now they have tried to kill the president. We need to ensure that we get answers for the American people. And I don't want this behind closed doors. This has to be transparent. This has to be accessible. This has to be accountable for the American people.
Congressman Jim Jordan, we also know that the Trump team has been saying we need more resources. The Secret Service around them is exhausted. They got Melania and the president are in different places a lot. Barron is now in a different place quite often. They have other kids, other targets, and it's just been on deaf ears. Did you realize how desperate the situation was?
I don't think anyone did, but obviously the people around the president did, and that's why they asked for additional resources. And according, again, to even the Washington Post, they were denied those resources that were needed to protect the president. So this is, I think, an important line of questioning that will happen at Monday's hearing with Director Cheatle. Wednesday's hearing, we have Director Wray in front of the Judiciary Committee. I think we'll have all kinds of questions there as well. And then we want to get an update on what's happening, because the FBI is now the lead agency in investigating what took place here.
So, Congressman Mills, this should be bipartisan. Do you know who's also on that list? President Biden. Looks like A.G. Garland was on that list. This should not be a partisan situation. Have you gotten any calls of concern from your Democratic colleagues?
Well, I've not, and you're right. This is not a bipartisan or a partisan thing, but should be a bipartisan American issue. And I think that there are enough Democrats who do share the same concerns, because this is not just about what happened to President Trump, but what could happen to any elected officials. Many of us, and Jim can tell you this, come under different types of threats, or we get death threats in district or other places. So we need to be able to understand what is necessary to keep people safe. We need to also go ahead and understand that the dangerous rhetoric that continues to ramp this up, where people like President Biden has said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. This is the type of thing that incites these types of violence. They were so quick to talk about President Trump with regards to J6 incitement. Where's everyone else on the ideas of the J13 incitement? I think that we need to start looking at this in a bipartisan way to try and ensure that we have the security, the resources, the know-how, and that we get away from DEI, which equals DIE, and start getting back to meritocracy and what is best to help the security security of elected officials and our president.
Congressman, are you worried, Jordan? Are you worried that there are going to be so many investigations, nothing's going to get done? Do you sense there's got to be some coordination and streamlining?
The speaker's announced that he will form a task force in a bipartisan way to look at this issue. So I think that's helpful. We got to do our job. We have an oversight responsibility. We're going to do that. We start on Monday in the Oversight Committee with Director Cheatle there to answer some of these questions. Wednesday with Director Wray in front of the Judiciary Committee, where I'm sure he'll get a lot of questions about this subject as well. I go back to, Brian, that critical 2 minutes from the time the shooter is identified, 2 minutes later, President Trump is shot. What took place in those 2 minutes? And this idea that Senator Hawley talked about that we've also heard about, the idea that there wasn't this seamless communication. They were on different channels and it was tougher to communicate and everyone to know what was going on. If that was the case, why in the world would you set it up that way? That makes no sense to me as a layman. I don't think it makes sense to people who do security like Corey and others who've been involved with that. There should be one communications channel so that you're up to speed in as quick a time as you can be to deal with situations just like this. So there's the during issue that I think is critical, but maybe the most important is what they didn't do beforehand to secure this place and to give the president more security protection like he'd been asking for repeatedly over the last several months.
Wow.
Okay, I understand the Secret Service did just respond. You want to tell me what they just said, Desiree? Go ahead. I don't have my phone with me.
Ooh. Interesting. Are they watching this and they responded?
Right.
Interesting. What is the Secret Service?
They essentially said, in some instances, they did modify the protection, and they're just kind of nuancing their way out of this. We'll give you the full statement in a little while, but it was nothing earth-shattering. All right, well, go ahead.
Well, that's a change from what they said just a few days ago. So they have now changed their story. A few days ago, they said that was not the case, that they did not deny President Trump additional security. Now they're changing their story. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, we'll put it in the we'll read the whole thing, but it's not a good sign. But Mayorkas berating Congressman Waltz. He owes Congressman Waltz an apology. Corey Mills, Jim Jordan, Congressman, thanks so much. We look forward to seeing what you can uncover this week. Meanwhile, do not miss Jesse Waters' full interview with President Trump and his Vice President.
Okay. Good to hear from some members there. I want to hear from some Democratic members to hear what they have to say. All we've been hearing is from Republican members. I want to hear what some of the Democrat members have to say about this. And that's why I am looking forward to this hearing tomorrow, House Oversight Committee. Now, Jim Jordan did say a couple things, new information out of that. And that came out today, by the way, earlier. Two things that he said new to me. One, Christopher Wray, FBI director, is going in front of the Judiciary Committee, House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. So that will be interesting to watch what the FBI director has to say about this. Because remember, folks, the FBI seems like they are the lead investigators of this terrible, terrible tragedy that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. We've been seeing clips of FBI agents going door to door in the shooter's neighborhood, his Bethel Park home neighborhood, where he traveled, an hour to go up to Butler, Pennsylvania. They were going door to door, knock on the door. They were actually at the parent's home. There was a photograph out there of the FBI agents talking to the shooter's dad, who apparently is cooperating with law enforcement. So the FBI director goes in front of the Judiciary Committee. Maybe we'll get some understanding about the investigation with this case. So stay tuned for that. He also said they're setting up some sort of the House, Speaker of the House Johnson, setting up a task force. So are we talking about a J13 commission similar to the J6 selected committee? Are we talking about a committee that's going to happen called J13 or whatever you want to call it? It seems like that's a possibility too, folks. So, but at the same time, the reporter there had a very logical question. You got all these investigations run by everything. Is that good or bad to get the truth out when you have multiple parallel investigations going on? Because one investigation might come up with some totally different conclusion than the other. So remains to be seen on that aspect. We'll be watching tomorrow. I want to know more about this guy. Matter of fact, we just shared a clip, a video I just put on the channel here. Apparently on the 22nd of July, just weeks before the shooting, he took a handgun shooting. He went to a shooting place in Mars, Pennsylvania, Cranberry Township in that area, and he went there and took a $150 course, a shooting class that he paid $150. He took a 9mm. So I don't know who owns the 9mm. Maybe his dad did, but he took a shooting course. So, and there was a gentleman who came on the record and said he was side by side with him at this shooting range. So, whew, scary stuff. He took shooting classes right before he went on this mass shooting, and then obviously we know that he would use his dad's gun, his AR-15 rifle, to go to the Clarion Sportsman Club. So a lot of still unknowns with this, but hopefully we get some more information tomorrow about this. One more clip. We could play one more clip talking about the Secret Service. News Nation is on this too. There's a lot of media outlets and also members of Congress and everyone speaking out. Oh, by the way, I know that you guys heard the news that here, I just want to show you something else, folks. The news that Joe Biden is he's dropping out as far as running. He's going to fulfill the last 4 months of his presidency, but he's not going to seek re-election. He's endorsing Kamala Harris. It's unclear if Kamala Harris is going to be the candidate. But here's a photo right here of Secret Service Chief Kimberly Cheatle with Kamala Harris on Christmas. I just wanted to just show you that, by the way, because if Kamala Harris becomes president, and there's always a possibility. You never know who's going to win the election. It could be Kamala, and she might not get the nominee, but if she wins the election, maybe she keeps Cheatle on. Maybe Cheatle doesn't go anywhere, right? Cheatle might stay. I mean, I think she's just, she's done. She's lame duck. She's over, but you never know, and Cheatle might just stay on. She could weather the storm and just say, for instance, the House, the Senate, or the presidency. It just depends on who's in office, right, at the time. So I don't know. For people to say that no one can beat Trump, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the elections. Elections are unpredictable, really. I mean, you might think somebody's going to win, but you never know what's going to happen. And there could be a possibility that Kamala Harris is the president of the United States, and gets elected in. Here's another report right here.
Now, Chad Wolf, former acting Secretary of Homeland Security. You know a lot about this subject and protecting Americans, both foreign and domestic. I appreciate you being here. The investigation into what happened on Saturday in the assassination attempt, what does that look like specifically to uncover the answers that we need to prevent it from happening again?
Well, I think you've got a couple of different things going on. You've got the DHS Inspector General, who just announced that he's going to open up an investigation here in his office. Will open that investigation. You've heard President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas talk about an independent review, so they're going to have to square those two different investigations up. We don't need multiple investigations. You probably need one lead investigation to understand what went on, and then obviously you have more public congressional hearings probably taking place next week as well. So you've got a number of different fronts going on. But look, regardless of who it is, I think what they're going to take a look at is, did Secret Service follow the procedures that they have for protectees, in this case, former President Trump? And if they did, are those procedures, is that planning, is the resource allocation sufficient for the types of public profile and threat profile that the former president has? So a lot of those things will be looked at, the role of local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and how they partner with Secret Service to secure a venue like that rally. All these things will be taken a close look at.
The task is uncovering the answers and looking closely at how all of this happened, but couple that with calls for accountability. Does that accompany this investigation, looking at mistakes that were made, and what does accountability look like, Chad?
Well, I think it should. What you normally find those with these types of independent reviews, particularly from the IG and others, is they won't call for specific personnel recommendations. Congress certainly will, but it's really up to the president. It's up to the DHS secretary to say, were procedures simply not followed? Was it a case of incompetence? Was it a case of people just not doing their job? And if that is what went down, then who is accountable? I believe at this time, based on public reporting, that the accountability stops with the Secret Service director and what she knew and what she was able to authorize for the former president's security detail. So I think that's a big part. I think that's what Americans, they want to understand what went wrong. How could you allow something like this to happen? But then they also want to know who's accountable.
And can she withstand pressure to step down? And how does that impact morale within the Secret Service in such a tumultuous political time?
I think it's going to be very difficult for her to withstand that. I think at the end of the day, she will likely need to resign because, look, the buck stops with her. I think she was quoted as saying that recently. I'm not sure how she survives this. If your primary, particularly in the protection division of the service, is to protect your principal and someone shoots the president, you have failed in your mission. Regardless of how it happened, your job is to protect the president. And so I don't know how she withstands that type of scrutiny. And I think those calls are going to come certainly next week in public congressional hearings.
This investigation under the microscope, but at the same time, we've got to talk about the threat of copycats and other follow-up violence. How does the agency navigate a multifaceted threat?
Yeah, look, anytime that there's a public event, a public incident like the one that we saw last Saturday, the law enforcement is always concerned about copycats. They're always concerned about others emulating this, wanting to get their picture, wanting to get the fame, wanting to get the attention. So this is not unique, and law enforcement's prepared for this. I think this is something that they've got to keep their eye on. You're likely going to see, obviously, a different security posture around former President Trump and probably all the other former presidents that are out there. They'll take a look at the threat environment. They'll take a look at the intelligence they have, and they should have a security package that's commensurate with that. I think one thing that they need to look at is, did President Trump have enough resources? He's not like other former presidents. He's not like an 8-term president who then doesn't have a high public profile. He's in court. He's doing rallies. He's running for the presidency. And so with that comes a higher level of scrutiny and, unfortunately, a higher level of threats to his life.
Right. And the Secret Service and these agencies tasked with protecting the president and former presidents train for this. The public plays a key role as well. Yep. Chad, thanks for being with us as always. Your perspective greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
So that was a good interview, too, from a law enforcement perspective. What in the world? But they do have a point. Trump, probably would need more protection than Biden, just based off, Trump's high profileness. There's a lot of people that don't like Trump out there. There's a lot of people that do love Trump. There's a lot of people that hate Trump. The court cases, just everything, he's a lightning rod. You would think that there would be more Secret Service on him than there would be Biden, or equal. So we'll keep our eyes out on this particular segment, and when she testifies, we will analyze and review on JLR Investigates, because we are trying to get the truth here and get an understanding. And I will continue to dig in the process on this guy right here, Thomas Matthews Crooks. Anything and everything about him we will share on this channel. People are slowly coming out, sharing their experiences with him. Whistleblowers are coming out, so can't wait for that. And we will continue to take a deep dive, peeling the onion, no stone left unturned. Appreciate you watching this segment, folks. JLR Investigates. Sub to the channel, hit the notification button. Thank you, members and subs, and thank you, everyone, for the support. And we'll keep digging in and getting the truth, and then I'll share it all with all of you. Have a good night, everyone. Be safe. Until next time, JLR Investigates.